April 12, 1945. A forest floor slick with pine needles and the damp chill of a German spring. The air, thick with the smell of wet earth and cordite, carries the sound of a world ending. It is not the thunder of a great battle, but the sporadic, almost tired crackle of rifle fire, the punctuation mark at the end of a long, brutal sentence. For 19-year-old Nachrichtenhelferin Anja Vogel, this sound is the metronome of fear. Her signals unit, once a proud component of the Wehrmacht's communication network, is now just a handful of frightened women and old men scattered in the woods somewhere west of the Ruhr River. Their equipment is gone, their command structure has evaporated, and their world has shrunk to this patch of darkening forest. Anja clutches the cold steel of a Karabiner 98K rifle she was issued only days before, a weapon she barely knows how to load, let alone fire with any accuracy. The rough wool of her Luftwaffe blue uniform is soaked through, clinging to her skin. Around her, the others huddle behind ancient oaks, their faces pale masks of exhaustion and disbelief. They were told they were the last line of defense for the fatherland. Now, they are simply the last. The propaganda posters of smiling, determined soldiers feel like a cruel joke from another lifetime. There is no determination here. There is only the low, guttural growl of engines getting closer. American engines. You can feel the vibration through the soles of your boots before you can properly hear them. It is a deep, systemic rumble, the sound of an immense machine that cannot be stopped. It is the sound of absolute defeat. A twig snaps. Anja's head whips around, her heart hammering against her ribs. It is only Oberleutnant Schmidt, a man whose gray hair and trembling hands betray the absurdity of his continued resistance. His eyes meet hers, and in them she sees no strategy, no hope, only a profound weariness. He opens his mouth to speak, but the words are swallowed by the sudden roar of a GMC truck grinding its gears on a nearby forest track. They are here. For Staff Sergeant Frank Miller, Company B, 39th Infantry Regiment, 9th Infantry Division, this forest is just one more in a line of endless European forests. He is tired down to his bones. The news of President Roosevelt's death had reached them this morning, a strange, distant shock in a world already saturated with loss. Now his focus is narrow, immediate. His M1 Garand feels like a permanent extension of his arms. His boots are caked in the same German mud as the prisoners they are rounding up. Miller and the men of his platoon move with an economy of motion born of endless combat. There is no shouting, only hand signals and low murmurs. They've seen it all by now, from the beaches of Normandy to the blood-soaked Hürtgen forest. The fighting in the Ruhr pocket is just the grim epilogue. They emerge from the tree line, a line of grim-faced men in olive drab, their helmets low, their eyes scanning everything. They are not the monsters from Goebbels' radio broadcasts. They are just men, their faces smudged with dirt and fatigue, their youth buried under a layer of hard-won cynicism. But to Anja, they are titans, the arbiters of her fate. Oberleutnant Schmidt steps forward, his hands raised slowly, deliberately. He says something in German, his voice cracking. No one answers. The Americans just keep coming, their rifles held at a low, ready position. The metallic click of a rifle safety being disengaged is the only reply. Miller moves toward the small group of women. He sees their uniforms, notes their age. Kids. Most of them are just kids, same as the Volkssturm boys they'd encountered yesterday, boys who had cried for their mothers when they were hit. He feels nothing, not pity, not anger, just a vast, hollow emptiness. This is the job. Secure the prisoners. Move on. He gestures with his rifle. Ausstehen. Hände hoch. Get up. Hands up. His German is rough, utilitarian, learned in bits and pieces across France and Belgium. Anja rises slowly, her legs shaking. Her hands go up, the heavy rifle slipping from her numb fingers and clattering onto the forest floor. She stares at the American sergeant. His face is a blank slate. He doesn't look at her, not really. He looks through her, his gaze already on the next tree, the next shadow, the next task. For her, this is the moment her world ends. For him, it is just another Thursday in Germany. The great, impersonal machinery of war has ground them together, and now it is moving on, taking her with it.
The journey is a jarring, dehumanizing blur. Anja is packed into the back of a canvas-topped GMC truck with 24 other prisoners, a suffocating press of damp wool and fear. The truck lurches and sways over ruined roads, each bump a fresh misery. No one speaks. The guards, young GIs with faces that seem too fresh for their grim work, sit at the tailgate, their rifles held loosely but ready. They chew gum, their jaws working methodically, their eyes distant. They are a wall of indifference. Anja watches the German countryside roll past, a landscape of skeletal towns and fallow fields. It is her country, but it feels alien now, a place she no longer belongs to. The sky is a vast, unforgiving gray canvas. After hours that feel like days, the truck rumbles to a halt. The canvas flap is thrown back, and harsh commands in English slice through the silence. Out! Raus! Schnell! They are herded out into a vast open field, bordered by a formidable perimeter of barbed wire and watchtowers. This is Rheinwiesenlager B4, a temporary enclosure that will be their new home. But it is not a home. It is a pen. The ground is a sea of mud, churned by thousands of boots and relentless spring rain. There are no barracks, no buildings, only the sky for a roof and the earth for a bed. Tens of thousands of German soldiers, men of all ages and ranks, are already here, a sprawling city of ghosts and faded field gray. They are now separated, the women and auxiliaries guided to a smaller, segregated compound within the larger camp. The process is swift and clinical. They are lined up. Their personal belongings are confiscated. A locket, a photograph, a letter, small anchors to a past that no longer exists. They are counted. They are given a number. Anja Vogel, the girl from a small village near Dresden who loved to read poetry, ceases to exist. She is now prisoner 734. The wire fence is the new horizon. Beyond it, the world of the victors operates with a strange, incomprehensible rhythm. Jeeps and trucks move with purpose. Tents are kitched in neat rows. Smoke rises from cookhouse chimneys, carrying on the wind a scent so agonizingly delicious it feels like a physical assault. The smell of roasting meat, of baking bread, of coffee. Staff Sergeant Frank Miller stands his watch on the perimeter. From his perspective, the enclosure is a logistical problem. It's an ocean of gray uniforms, a source of potential trouble, and a drain on resources. His orders are clear. Maintain security, prevent escapes, distribute the rations you're given, and do not engage. Do not fraternize. The enemy is the enemy, even in defeat. The Wehrmacht nearly broke his division in the Bulge. The SS units they fought in the last weeks were fanatics. He has seen friends die. He has seen what these people, this ideology, did to the world. So he hardens his heart. He looks at the faces staring back at him through the wire and sees not individuals, but a collective noun, the enemy, POWs. Days bleed into one another, distinguished only by the meager routine of survival, the morning roll call, where they stand for hours in the cold mud, and the food. The food is the center of their universe. Once a day, a watery soup is ladled into the tin cups they were allowed to keep, sometimes with a small piece of hard black bread. You learn to eat it slowly, to make it last, to trick your stomach into feeling full. But the hunger is a constant companion, a dull, aching fire that never goes out. It sharpens the senses. Every scent from the American side of the wire, the discarded crust of a sandwich, the faint aroma from a ration can, is an obsession. The prisoners watch the Americans eat. They watch them open K-rations, sit on ammunition crates sharing cigarettes and chocolate bars. It is like watching a film from another world, a world of warmth and abundance. The GIs are not cruel. They are simply separate, living in a different reality on the other side of the wire. For them, a can of stew is just a meal. For the prisoners watching, it is a feast beyond imagining. Anja feels her identity being stripped away, layer by layer. She is no longer a soldier, a daughter, a German. She is becoming something more elemental, a creature defined by cold, fatigue, and a desperate, all-consuming hunger.
The third week in the cage grinds on. The initial shock has worn off, replaced by a monotonous, soul-crushing despair. The hunger is no longer just a physical ache. It is a psychological predator. It prowls the edges of every thought, devours every memory. Anyanya watches the other women. Some have sunk into a silent, vacant apathy. Others have become hard, their eyes sharp and calculating, watching for any opportunity, any sign of weakness. Fights break out over a dropped crust of bread. The bonds of comradeship, forged in the final, frantic days of the war, are dissolving under the acid of starvation. All that remains is the primal urge to survive. From her section of the wire, Anja can clearly see the American mess tent. She sees the cooks in their white aprons, the steam billowing from large pots. And she sees the disposal area. She sees GIs scraping leftover food from their mess kits into large metal bins. Scraps, potato peels, bits of gristle, half-eaten slices of bread. To Anja and the women around her, those bins are a treasure chest. They talk about it in hushed, furtive tones when the guards are out of earshot. They imagine the taste, the texture. The conversation is a form of self-torture, yet they cannot stop. The idea begins as a terrifying, unthinkable fantasy. To ask, to actually approach one of the guards and ask. It is forbidden. Fraternization is forbidden. Contact is forbidden. The punishment could be anything: a beating, the loss of their already minuscule ration. For days they debated.
The risk is immense, but the gnawing emptiness in their stomachs is more immediate, more persuasive than the fear of punishment. A woman named Liesel, older and more pragmatic, is the one who finally solidifies the plan. They will not ask for a meal. They will not beg for charity. They will ask for garbage, for the leftovers. Abfälle, she calls it. Trash. Surely asking for trash is not a crime. It is the ultimate act of humiliation, a final surrender of pride. But pride is a luxury they can no longer afford. They choose their moment carefully. It is late afternoon. The American soldiers have finished their main meal. The shifts are about to change, a moment of potential distraction. The guard on their section is the sergeant, the one they have seen since the day of their capture. Miller. He seems less aggressive than some of the younger ones, his movements slower, more deliberate. He has a remote, detached air, but not a cruel one. He just seems tired. Anya's heart feels like a trapped bird beating against her ribs. She has chosen to be the one to speak, her schoolgirl English deemed the best among them. Liesel and 2 others stand just behind her for support, their faces tight with anxiety. Staff Sergeant Frank Miller walks his post, the damp air chilling him through his field jacket. His thoughts are 6,000 miles away, in Ohio, on a porch swing with a glass of lemonade. He thinks of his mother's cooking, pot roast, apple pie. The memories are so vivid they make his own K-rations taste like ash. He is counting the days. The war is over, for all intents and purposes. Now it is just a waiting game. He glances over at the prisoners, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. A small group of the women are standing close to the wire. Too close. He is about to bark at them to move back when he sees their faces. It is not defiance in their eyes. It is pure, unadulterated fear. Anya steps forward, her boots sinking in the mud. She stops just short of the wire. Miller stops walking, his hand resting on the stock of his gerund. He squints, his expression unreadable. The entire compound seems to hold its breath. Other prisoners watch from a distance, silent, expectant. Anya's throat is dry. The words feel like stones in her mouth. She cannot bring herself to look him in the eye. She stares at a button on his jacket instead. They didn't speak out loud. The request came as a whisper, careful, embarrassed, and fearful of punishment. "Sergeant," she begins, her voice a reedy, trembling thing. He says nothing, just watches her. "The food from your plates. The scraps." She struggles for the right word in English. "The leftovers. For the garbage." She finally dares to look at him. We can have? Please?" The whisper hangs in the air between them, fragile and explosive. It is a question that crosses more than just a line of barbed wire. It crosses the chasm between victor and vanquished, guard and prisoner, human and enemy. Miller's face doesn't change. His jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He stares at the small group of women, at their thin faces and desperate eyes. For a long moment, the only sound is the wind sighing through the wire. Then, without a word, without a single gesture, he turns his back on them and walks away, his boots making sucking sounds in the mud, as he heads back toward the American tents.
A wave of cold dread washes over Anya. He is going to get his commanding officer. They will be punished. The other prisoners who were watching begin to move away, not wanting to be associated with them. Liesel puts a hand on Anya's shoulder, her face grim. "It was a mistake," she murmurs, her voice heavy with regret. Anya feels tears welling in her eyes, hot with shame and fear. She has made everything worse. They huddle together by the wire, exposed and terrified, waiting for the inevitable retribution. Every distant shout, every engine starting, sounds like their sentence being carried out. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The sun begins to sink lower, painting the gray sky with strokes of pale orange, a beautiful sunset over a landscape of misery. Then they see him again. It is Sergeant Miller, walking back towards their section of the fence. He is alone, but he is carrying something. 2 standard-issue U.S. Army mess kits, the heavy steel kind. Anya's heart sinks further. Perhaps this is part of the punishment, to mock them by showing them the food they cannot have. He stops at the wire, directly in front of them. He still does not speak. His expression is as neutral, as unreadable as before. He crouches down, his knees protesting in the mud, and carefully pushes the 2 mess kits under the lowest strand of barbed wire. The metallic scrape of the kits sliding through the dirt is the loudest sound in the world. Anya stares, unable to comprehend what she is seeing. This is not a bucket of scraps. This is not garbage. In one mess kit, steam rises from a mound of boiled potatoes and carrots, next to a thick slice of meatloaf swimming in gravy. In the other, there are 4 whole slices of soft, white bread.
bread like she has not seen in years. It is food meant to be eaten fresh and warm. It is a soldier's meal. It is his meal and his squad mates. The reaction is immediate shock. A complete, paralyzing silence falls over the entire section of the camp. The women who had stood with Anya are frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. Other prisoners, who had been watching from a safe distance, slowly begin to creep closer, drawn by a scene so surreal it has to be witnessed firsthand. Anya looks from the steaming food to the sergeant's face. He finally meets her gaze, and for the first time, she sees something flicker in his eyes. It isn't pity. It is something quieter, more complex. A weariness, perhaps, and a spark of shared, undeniable humanity. Miller stands up, his joints popping. He gives a short, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture that says, "Take it." And then he turns and resumes his patrol as if nothing has happened, his back once again a wall of military discipline. He does not look back. He cannot afford to. He knows Lieutenant Davis is probably watching from the command tent. He knows he has broken a dozen regulations, fraternizing with the enemy, giving aid and comfort, diverting military rations. In the hardened calculus of war, his action is an infraction, a moment of weakness. But for Frank Miller, something had broken inside him when he heard that whisper. It wasn't the German words. It was the sound of a young woman, no older than his own sister back in Ohio, begging for his garbage. In that moment, the uniform, the ideology, the years of combat, all of it had fallen away, and he saw only a hungry girl. He had walked back to the mess line, told the cook that he and another man on his patrol had missed their meal, and gotten 2 fresh plates. It was that simple and that profound. Anya slowly reaches under the wire, her hands trembling as she pulls the mess kits into their world. The warmth of the metal seeps into her cold fingers. The smell is overwhelming, intoxicating. She looks at Liesel, at the other 2 women. Tears are streaming down their faces, silent, unchecked. They do not fall upon the food like animals. The sergeant's gesture was not just about sustenance, it was about dignity, and they receive it with the same quiet gravity with which it was given. They break the bread, divide the meatloaf, portion out the potatoes, and they eat. Slowly, reverently. Each bite is an explosion of flavor, a reminder of a life they thought was lost forever. The act spreads through the camp not as a shout, but as a ripple of stunned silence, leaving guards and prisoners alike grappling with an act of compassion that no one had anticipated, an act that defied the simple, brutal logic of war.
The food is gone in minutes, but its effect lingers, a warm ghost in their empty stomachs, and a profound shift in the cold atmosphere of the compound. The act itself was a secret, witnessed by few, but the story spreads in whispers, passed from one prisoner to another like a forbidden rumor, a rumor of kindness. It creates a crack in the monolithic wall of their hatred and fear. The Americans are not a single entity anymore. They are individuals, and one of them, at least one of them, had seen them as human beings. For Anya, the world is tilted on its axis. She was raised on a diet of relentless propaganda. The Americans were gangsters, barbarians, racially impure degenerates who would defile Germany and its people. She had seen their bombs fall on German cities, had seen the destruction they brought. They were the enemy, a concept as solid and unquestionable as the ground beneath her feet. Now that certainty is gone, replaced by a bewildering confusion. The man who held her life in his hands, who could have punished her, had instead shared his own food. He had given her dignity when she had been prepared for humiliation. How could both things be true? How could the enemy, the monster, have the face of a tired man who remembered what it was to be kind? The change is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it is there. The next day, another guard, a young private who had witnessed the event, accidentally drops a pack of cigarettes near the wire and walks away. An older prisoner, a former professor, engages a different guard in a brief, stilted conversation about the weather in broken English and is not told to shut up. These are not grand gestures. They are tiny fissures in the dam of animosity. The act of one man has given others permission to be human. It does not change the reality of the camp. The hunger is still there. The mud is still cold. The future is still a terrifying blank. But something has been introduced into the equation, the possibility of grace. Sergeant Miller never acknowledges what he did. He continues his patrols with the same stoic professionalism. He never speaks to Anya again. To do so would be to invite scrutiny, to turn a moment of private conscience into a public incident. But Anya watches him. She sees the way his shoulders are slumped with a fatigue that is more than physical. She sees the way he looks out over the thousands of prisoners, his gaze distant. She no longer sees a conqueror.
She sees a man who is just as trapped by this war as she is, albeit on the other side of the wire. He is trapped by his duty, by his memories, by the things he has seen and done. Weeks later, the camp is dismantled. The prisoners are moved to more permanent facilities, the first step in a long, uncertain journey back into a country that no longer exists as they knew it. As Anya is marched out with her group, she looks for the sergeant one last time, but he is gone, reassigned, another anonymous face in a sea of olive drab. She will never know his name. She will never know why he did what he did, but that single, quiet act of defiance against the cruelty of the world will remain with her. It is a moment that will redefine the enemy, and in doing so will give her a fragile, improbable seed of hope. In the vast impersonal calculus of war, with its millions dead and its continents in ruins, the offering of a single hot meal is a statistic of zero importance. But for the men and women who lived through the wreckage, these were the moments that mattered. They were the faint, improbable echoes of a shared humanity, promising that even after the deepest darkness, a world could perhaps be rebuilt.